Say to yourself, I am more than my physical body. Because I am more than physical matter, I can perceive that which is greater than the physical world. I deeply desire to expand, to experience, to know, to understand, to control, to use such greater energies and energy systems as may be beneficial and constructive to me and to those who follow me. I deeply desire the help and cooperation, the assistance, the understanding of those individuals whose wisdom, development, and experience are equal to or greater than my own. I ask their guidance and protection from any influence or any source that might provide me with less than my stated desires.
Do not know all the answers to the questions about reality. Do not claim to know the ultimate truth about fire. I seek that which has been made hidden as a part of a family of explorers of consciousness. I am the void one.
Let's go.
Welcome to Lighting the Void.
All broadcasting live from a shack on a hill in the Mossy Creek bottoms of King Creek, Arkansas. This is Lighting the Void live here on Fringe FM. Whoa, almost missed you radio folks. Sorry about that. This is Lighting the Void live. It is October the 23rd, 2024. We jumped on the channel same time that we did last time. 9/11, that's my time. 911. So that's another synchronicity. I'm getting there's some kind of a emergency situation going on, maybe. Vuldoon is what we've been studying. Listen, there are about 5 or 6 well-worthy astral travel books out there that I think are worth reading if you're going to get into like the out-of-body experience and stuff. I'm the more I've dug into this, like this is probably the first one. The first one. Can always remember that. What we're talking about is the first one. The one from the 20s. Things have evolved since then. But what I'm trying to do is get people to wrap their mind around, why am I so low? Did I fall down here? What's going on? Trying to get people to wrap their mind around the fact that people have been doing this stuff since the beginning of time, right? This whole out-of-body thing. But first, before we get back into that, I had to ask my man Gareth a question. So Gareth, our brother from across the pond, who is struggling and battling with ALS. By the way, I think we should do some of us think that we should do a massive, focused healing for Gareth across the board. I mean, it's not going to hurt. It's only going to help, you know. And anyways, get into that here in a minute. I don't want to stand on ceremony. Let's get into what Gareth had to say. Now, I asked Gareth some questions, and one of the biggest things was, what is it? What's the biggest challenge in getting out of body at this moment? Now, obviously, the ALS is a challenge, but I wanted to know some more details, like I want to know what's going on in his mind. And he didn't have a problem with answering that question. So let's move over to Gareth. Got some pretty good news actually, but let him answer this question. So I asked, tell me what the biggest challenges are for you to getting out of body or getting to the vibratory state. Those types of things. Let me make sure. Yeah, let me make sure everybody can hear this. First.
2 things. 1, I am in a lot of pain. It's hard for me to close my eyes and get into a relaxing state because my muscular pain is so crippling. 2, fatigue. On the days when I'm not pain, I am extremely fatigued. It's hard to close my eyes and not go to sleep. I am sleeping more these days. The palliative team have said that it could be an early sign of the end being nigh. Well, the end of this existence anyway. I had hospice come around last week. One of them was eagerly looking at my bookshelf. I was telling them, while typing through a computer, about the adventures of Robert Monroe and William Bullman. One of them looked really concerned and suggested that I might need a counselor. Hope you're well, brother.
Man, listen, I don't know how hard it would be for you, Gareth, to pick up your middle finger. If it hurts, don't do it. But if it doesn't, if you can do it, I would pick up my middle finger and flip that guy off. I'm just saying. Like, one of them said you need a counselor because you want to explore your consciousness and study a guy that has been helping people not just explore consciousness, but helping people pass and get ready for that stage of their life. Like, why would anybody, I can't imagine this. Why would anybody look at your bookshelf? You got a guy with ALS you're supposed to be helping. You look at his bookshelf and you see Journeys Out of the Body by Robert Monroe. And you see probably Higher Self Now or something like that by William Bullman. And then you turn to the patient and you say, I think, you might need counseling. What an asshole. I'm sorry, man. That pisses me off. Anyways. So, I went on to ask, really pisses me off, actually. I went on to ask some more questions to Gareth. Gareth's so cool, man. He really is. I said, can you tell me in this moment what your biggest fears are? Would you be comfortable talking about that and help us understand? We love you, and I do hope you know that for sure. And he said, hello, buddy. Just to let you know, I'll answer this question as soon as possible. And then he sent me the answer. Now, you have to understand whether this is comfortable for you or not. I think every person on this earth should have a voice. And when a man is facing what Gareth is facing, he's like the ultimate void walker right now. And I want him to have his voice. I want to know what he's thinking, what he's feeling. So give me just a second here, because this is a little, it's a little touching sometimes, for sure. And it wouldn't take much, really. It wouldn't take much for all of us just to, I don't know, do a little focused meditation or focused anything for Gareth. All of us, at once. There's a lot of power in that, especially, here's the thing, if you can get your emotions involved with it, it's even more powerful. I know some of you guys are like Big Joe Dispenza fans, so you probably understand what I'm talking about. So if you would, you don't have to, I'm not trying to force you to do this, but if you would, send some healing to Gareth and really feel it, make sure that you feel it. Make it a good thing. Love, healing, health, anything you want, as long as it's positive. I'm not going to tell you what to do. As long as it's positive, that would be great. And I'm just fixing some of this stuff so that it can come out right. Remember, he has to speak through a computer, and then I'm relaying all this stuff too. So, yeah, I think he speaks through a computer, and then his caretaker types it into Facebook so that I can read it. And I want to make sure that I get that. Hopefully, this voice won't screw up. It's an AI voice. I'm sure you guys figured that out, but like sometimes it doesn't work right. Let's see. Sorry, I'm running a little late tonight. Okay. So here's his answer to that question.
Hello, my friend. Please forgive me for being late in getting back to you. I've had some new carers in, and Richard has been away on a well-deserved break. I'll answer them the best I can. My biggest hope is to find a cure while I'm still alive. I'm hoping that with the assistance of AI, we may be on the cusp. This disease has been around for over 100 years, and there are only a handful of drugs which extend life extension by a mere few months. I hope to be able to move again, to breathe unaided, to feel the warm embrace of a woman, to taste my favorite foods. I'm hoping for a miracle, really, lol. I sometimes imagine myself becoming better, eventually being able to move and coming to see you when I'm fully functional. That would be awesome. I'm also hoping for an afterlife that isn't full of horrors. As hard as life has been, I still want another chance. I would like to live pain-free in a world where there is no division or senseless wars. I hope for a world that eradicates negativity into non-existence. A world where people see through the lies that are being peddled by shameful politicians. I also hope for happiness, contentment, peace and love. I have had a hard unringing, so I have to continually fight to not feel bitter. You and your community have helped me in so many ways, so I thank you for it. I hope that's good enough, my friend. I had written this all down last night, and my career is now typing it up on the computer for me. I will write the other part later on. Much love to you, my friend. Oh, and I forgot to add, I dream of being able to ride a motorcycle again, and to pet a dog, and to squeeze my mum as I hug her. I used to love to hug, but now it's other having to hug me whilst I sit there like a limp wet wipe.
I said thank you so much. You're an inspiration to all of us, man. I'll do everything I can to try to see you in the Astral, even now, bro. And that's my goal. That's one of my biggest goals. One of my biggest life goals now is to come hang out with you. And I love you, bro, from the depths. And I know that a lot of us do too. And after that, I accidentally butt dialed him on Facebook. So, and he was like, man, I wish I could have answered that call. It was totally a butt dial. Yeah, and I think that he got, here's some good news too. And I want him to say it. I would say it for him, but I'd rather let him say it, you know. That's important. So that's what we're going to do. Check this out. Well, let me erase that because that's okay.
Oh, I forgot to mention, Donna, from Team Tom Campbell, sent me an email last week with the following message. We hope that you are doing as well as can be expected. We did do a video on the book you read and Fear of Death a while back, and it was lost. It is now scheduled to be published on October 23rd, and I hope it can be of comfort to you. Love and our best, Donna and Tom. How great is that? The book they were talking about is That Horrid War in Heaven by Kyle Griffith. Pretty cool though, I. Take my friend.
They said, take care, my friend. That's really cool. I mean, so you remember when we were back reading The War in Heaven by Kyle Griffith, right? You guys remember that? And how like that was one of the first things that he reached out because he was scared. He was scared because some guy wrote a book about how all of this stuff that we've been taught is fake, and not only is it fake, we're in some kind of crazy prison, on some prison planet. So you got this guy who's one of us, you know, talking about this stuff, you know, like reading this stuff. It's it was crazy to me. And after I had already just read and listened to Robert Monroe, William Buellman, I thought, and had my own experiences out of body, my own experiences consciously, my own experiences with love and what I know conscious to be. I don't try to push my beliefs on anybody, but it did speak to me in a sense, like, how can any human come up with such a story, put all this stuff together and come up with this prison planet story as if it's such a factual thing, and change every spiritual text that's ever been written and speak about it as if it's fact, and yeah, it's just crazy to me. So that's a good news, right? So Thomas Campbell, that video, if you guys follow Thomas Campbell's channel, that video is out, and I think it's titled, we'll have to put the link in the description, but I think that it's titled something like negative, or fear of negativity, or after death, or negative fantasies, or something like that. And so I have more questions from Gareth, or for Gareth, and I'm going to kind of take this slow because we're caught up now, and I will get to those in the following shows. But what I'm asking everybody to do is just send a little healing his way. That's it. Not much. It's what we should be doing to begin with, right? We could all do this. And someone said the other day, like, I feel like the magic isn't happening the way it used to, remember? And the reason why, I could tell you, in my opinion, this is only my opinion, the reason why that stuff is not happening the way that it did, and there's only one reason why. Whatever you call your higher self, whatever you call that, the relationship that you could call it spirit, you could call it God, you can call it source, you can call it your holy guardian angel, you can call it your higher self. I don't care what you call it. Whatever that relationship that you have, Jesus, whatever that relationship that you have, there was a time when it was intimate. And this is spoken, this is talked about in a lot of esoteric texts too. It has to be an intimate relationship between you and what's guiding you. That conversation that you're having with it can't stop. It has to increase. And not only that, when you go down into whatever place that you are in your life, it does happen in levels. And things seem like, well, it went away, whatever. This magic went away, or this manifesting thing went away. It didn't go away. Reality changed because fear set in. If you really think about it, like on the deepest sense, it doesn't take much thinking really, but somehow or another, a seed of fear and doubt got planted into your mind. Maybe it was resentment. Who knows? Either you feared, doubted, or resented the relationship that you had with this spirit, whatever. At that moment, you backed off. And I'm only saying you because I've done this, right? You backed off. When you begin to back off, you started to get tested. Tested in the sense that, why would you back off? Now, imagine if you loved your... imagine if you had a relationship with your higher self. Think about the deepest bond you can have with a person, the ones that you really desire in your heart, that I know each and every one of you desire. Every one of you. You either already have it or you don't. And if you don't have it, you're never going to tell me that you don't desire it. We all desire a deep, loving bond with something, right? A person, most of the time, if you're on earth. But if you could understand that that bond that you're desiring is already there, and that you're supposed to develop that relationship first in the most intimate way, and that every time you leave that love or that connectedness, things seem to go away. The magic seems to go away. The manifestations seem to go away. The synchronicity seem to go away. Love, tenderness, all the good stuff. Because what we do as humans, of human nature, is when we get tested, when things get hard, when things get tough, when something makes us afraid, when something makes us doubt, when there's a lot of times when a change is coming and we're resisting it, or even just for some people, it's just uncomfortable, just being uncomfortable. We back away from it. Now, if you don't believe me, if you don't think that we do this with spirit, ask yourself, how much do we do this with humans? See, we can't look spirit in the eye. We can't talk to it. We can't shake its hand. We can't hug it. And anytime humans let us down, we do our defense stuff and back away. And then we pretend like we're empowered, and then sometimes we'll do this validation addiction thing, But slowly but surely, we've lost our connection with that partner, but it's still there. That's the one thing that you can count on. I know this to be true. I don't have any scientific proof of it. None. Zero. There's nothing solid, nothing I can measure, nothing I can do, convince you. Nothing I can do to convince you that this is true when I'm telling you, but I know it's true in my heart. Like, this is the most important thing for you to experience what you want to experience in this life, is that relationship. And knowing that after that, once you learn that, you can have any kind of relationship you want with anybody on the earth a lot easier. I feel like for the past 2 or 3 years, fear has really set in. And I was going through it too. When I met Gareth, I had so much doubt, so much anger, so much resentment. I'd been betrayed in the worst sense, emotionally toyed with, psychologically messed with in ways that poked every trauma center I had. I had pointed my finger at so many things. I didn't even want to do this podcast anymore. I was just done with it all. Done. I never felt so far away from that connection in my entire life. Never. And in those moments, if you don't believe spirit is a real thing, if you need some kind of scientific proof or whatever, this guy Gareth comes around and just messages me out of the blue. Gareth, here I am having a pity party for myself. I'm crushed, I really was. I was like in a dark place, but it could be darker. And then that us and what we do here gives him inspiration, keeps him going, keeps him holding on, keeps him thinking, hoping, dreaming. And in an instant, I understood, like I had the biggest download ever. Gareth inspired me more than anybody in my entire life has ever inspired me. He's like the OG Voidwalker, period. If there is an OG Voidwalker, it's Gareth. He was just, while this guy's in pain, while this guy's not only he's at the last edges of his life, he just got through telling you everything that mattered to him down to his heart and soul, every single thing that truly matters. And if you think about that in contrast to the rest of what the hell is going on out there, now it's no wonder there's no magic going on. Right? And in that moment I woke up. The only reason why I'm right here doing this show right now is because of him and because of you. But it was him that initiated it. And all I'm asking for you guys to do is to get rid of the fear, the doubt, the resentment, whatever love you have in your heart, whatever healing that you have, and focus it towards him. Just take some time and do this. Now, obviously, we could do it in a magical way, but I don't think we have to. I think each and every one of you could do this for Gareth. I'm asking you, please. Focus all of your dreams, all of everything that you truly desire in your heart and in your soul, everything that you've ever wanted in your heart, that love that you desire. Know that it's real, feel it, and send it to him. Just do that for me, please. Jane says, was it you, Joe, that said the resilience of the human spirit is proof positive that there's more to life? Yeah, something like that. Yeah. Man, things can get really dark. We live in a realm of alpha and omega, whether you like it or not. Everything is polar here. You don't have to read a science book to understand it. You can observe nature and see the poles. You could see the fractals. You could see the sacred geometry. You could see the masculine and feminine. You could see the poles of everything. It doesn't have to be verified. It's right in front of you, observable. And things can get really dark. And usually, I guess my point is when things are the darkest, it's because we've separated ourselves from that. That's it. There's no deep psychological crazy thing about it. There's no wokeness to it. There's no fifth dimensional aliens, archon. There's no, it's just that simple. We don't know the answers. We're studying the mysteries here. We're willing to explore consciousness in a practical sense so that we can experience it to understand it and know it. That's it. The rest is love. That's what brings us together. Anything else other than that, I don't know about you, but in my life, anything other than that is complete bullshit. I mean, it's not bullshit, it's life, but it doesn't matter at the end of the day as much as those things do. Love, life, each other, and figuring out what the hell we're doing here and helping each other figure this out. The rest of it for me goes, it's on a priority level, goes like this. So, if you're wanting to get out of body, here's another thing too, because sometimes I think you need a little bit more motivation to get out of body. Love is the best motivation you can have spiritually, psychologically, and mystically too, to have these experiences. If you're motivated by doubt, fears, or just wanting to know the truth about the unknown, dig a little deeper and see if you're motivated by love or fear, because at the bottoms of your motives, there's only two things happening there. With Gareth, though, we can use love. We can use love. And that might get some of us out of body so that we can go visit him. Not a promise. I know it's tough, not saying we can do it. But let's switch it up a little bit. Instead of just the intellectual stimulation, instead of trying to do it because we fear the unknown, let's do it for other reasons. See what happens. All right, so back into Vuldoon. And yeah, I'll keep you guys posted, whatever he sends me, because I'm trying to ask him things, and I told him that I would share it with you. He really wants to share it with you guys. So when he does, I'll share it with you. And if you guys want to send him anything, I can get his email again too, so that you can do that. So back to Vuldoon. Remember, in the 1920s, Sylvan Vuldoon, and I know a lot of us are jealous of Mr. Vuldoon, was having lots of out-of-body experiences. Now, right now, I don't want to debate about, let's just hear his experience. I don't want to debate whether the astral cord is real, what he's saying is real. Let's just take in his experience, and then we can talk about it. So, where we left off yesterday, according to Vuldoon, he believes, or at least he believes, I don't know how true this is now, but he believes that the physical body is not just needed for some experience for feedback or entropy to consciousness. It's actually needed to mold the etheric or the spiritual individual, almost like the physical is some kind of jello mold for the in a sense. That's a bad analogy because there's all kinds of other levels to it, but it's creating an individual. Now, this doesn't go against all of the spiritual texts by any means. And I don't know if that's the basis of why he's saying it, because he talks a lot about the occult and the mystery schools and things like that. But it doesn't go against that, because if you get into philosophy or the mysteries or just the Western mysteries, the mysteries period, the idea of an individuated consciousness that's no longer going through this cycle of amnesia and rebirth and amnesia and rebirth. It's like all of these stories lead to a point of this resurrection of, it's been called the Merkaba, the light body, the rainbow body, the Christ force, Tiferet on the tree of life, all of these different names of this individuated consciousness that, in my opinion, I know it sounds, out there, but in my opinion, has become conscious, has grown into this being, this individuated being that no longer has to go back around the fishbowl and keep losing its identity or its consciousness. I think they call it the second death or something in other books. I'm not trying to scare anybody. That should give you hope, right? Think about that. Not saying it's real, but let's just think about it for a minute. What if that's what the universe is doing? What if it's not just this system that's trying to get feedback? It's not just some alien experiment or just some feedback loop of consciousness and entropy. There's other ways to do that. Hell, we figured out how to do that with binary code. So why the hell would it go to all these complications and all this massive majesty of what's in the universe just for that? Seems a bit much for something that simple. But it would make sense if this was some kind of growth machine for an individuated consciousness. So you got, let's just say, for example, you got all of this matter, this conscious matter, and it's just consciousness, and it's trying to mold itself into an individual thing. Well, then, it creates a galaxy, then it creates a solar system. Just like when you observe in nature, everything starts spiraling in or spiraling out, and then it creates planets, and it creates a sun, and on the third rock, then there's these bodies, and you go into the bodies, and consciousness can live in these bodies. Now you have a seed that you've planted where you can grow a little conscious seed into something, right? And that seed, it cycles in the sphere sometimes back and forth, but eventually it starts growing into what it's supposed to become. This is a fantasy story, but let's entertain it. So eventually it becomes a single individuated unit of consciousness that can travel the stars, that has an identity, and that can relate to other things. It's not just in the water, in the muck anymore. Now, there's a lot of esoteric texts that talk about that. And maybe that's what this is. I've heard William Buellman say this is a training ground, right? We're in this training ground because in the astral realm, everything we think, feel, act upon, it happens instantly, right? And it's so chaotic there because we don't really understand this yet. So we're like these little individuated units of consciousness down here in this earth realm. And down here, cause and effect happens a lot slower than it does in the astral, so that we can understand cause and effect, or we can understand how all of this works. So when we do grow into those individuated units of consciousness that can travel through starlight and not just be stuck to the lead of this planet or planets, we'll understand it to a higher level. Now that sounds, and we'll be able to do it on a higher level. Now that sounds awesome. It sounds magical, and it could be true. But the bigger point is we don't know. There's nothing on this earth or in our physical brains that's going to solve this equation without making consciousness exploration top priority. It has to become top priority. Conscious exploration. What is consciousness? What's going on? It has to be a top priority on this planet. And even if it was, and every scientist on this planet had their own theories and labs across the board, I still think that it's at a level, the mystery is so deep that it's at a level that we actually are supposed to explore it in order to crack the code. I think it's designed for us to explore it in order to crack the code. Kind of like being stuck in a maze. You ever seen that movie? What the hell is that name of that movie with David Bowie? It's like an 80s movie. Labyrinth. You know, the Goblin King and stuff. You're not going to get out of the labyrinth just sitting there trying to find the baby or whatever. You're not going to get out of that labyrinth just by sitting around trying to do every logical thing or thinking about all the stuff. You have to go through it, and there's maze after maze, and it's all crazy, and none of it makes sense. Nobody's having the same individuated experiences. Nothing's lining up. We're only getting small parallels between everyone's experience. That's the way it's supposed to be, I think. So here we go into Vuldoon's theory stuff. Jesus, I don't know why I went on this big rant. It's the Gareth thing, man. The Gareth thing just makes me like, you know, puts a massive lump in my throat just thinking about it. I mean, like, who's this asshole? This is another thing, too, that's bothering me. I shouldn't be focused on it, but how many of you, I just want to ask you, like, how many of you would go into a room with some guy that you're supposed to be taking care of, right? That could be on the last legs of his life. According to Joe Dispenza, that's not necessarily true. But when you go in there, you look at his bookshelf, and he has spiritual books in there, books about the afterlife, books about conscious exploration. Great. I would, you know, in my opinion, I would say, man, that's amazing. Keep reading those. I would sit there and talk to him. Not whoever this was. What are you reading that for? You might need therapy. Man, what is wrong with you? Seriously. How the hell did you make it into the medical field? I need to fire that sumbitch, whoever that is. That's it. I'm done. All right. So the calculated weight of the astral body. So he says a few years ago at the International Convention of Spiritualists at Paris, it was stated humorously that the spirit of a man had about as much weight as a flea's whisker. There's a difference of opinion among occultists as to the weight of the astral body. For my part, I do not believe that the weight of man's double is known absolutely. Andrew Jackson Davis believed it to weigh about 1 ounce, and others say it does not weigh anything. However, being substance, the astral body must have some weight. Does it? Does it have to? In this connection, let us consider the experiments of 2 Dutch physicists, Dr. Malta and Zalberg van Zelst of Hague, in their endeavor to ascertain the composition and structure of the astral body. I had no idea that there were scientists even looking into this. They constructed an instrument extremely complicated in character, which they called a dynamistograph. And by means of this instrument, they claimed they were enabled to obtain direct communication with the spirit world without any medium at all. So in other words, they put this instrument in a room by itself, observed its actions through a small glass window, which had been cut in the wall, and the instrument was thereupon manipulated by apparent spiritual intelligences. This is the first I've ever heard about this. and long communications were spelled out by means of a letter dial at the top of the dynamistograph. Isn't that kind of like those spirit boxes at the same time? Isn't that how they work? Except this one's that like typing letters. That doctor was an NPC. Damn, you got me on that one. I got in a big argument with Sudi about NPCs. I'm like, I don't think that's a real thing, but yeah, now I understand exactly what you're saying. That doctor was an NPC or nurse or whatever the hell it was. You know. What? So they didn't have any medium at all. In other words, they put this instrument in the room. That's it. And they observed it. Now, there's a book in French entitled The Mystery of Death, which gives a long account of these experiments. Mr. Carrington has summarized it in his Modern Psychical Phenomena chapter, Instrumental Communication with the Spirit World. And from this article, I abstracted a few paragraphs which deal with the astral body and the existence of the astral body having been established by their experiments. Get out of here. I left the door open. Every single time, even if I leave it open like a crack, a freaking bug gets in here every time. They being physicists, said to themselves, let us investigate and determine the exact physical and chemical structure and composition of this body, its molecular arrangements and activity, and discover, if possible, its exact composition as we would any other body. Their conclusions arrived as the result of a long series of experiments, which we cannot now stop to summarize, were these. The body is capable of contraction and expansion under the action of the will, that is, the will of the astral body. The expansion being about 1.26 millimeters, or about 1/40,000,000 of its own volume. Its contraction being much greater, namely about 8 millimeters, or 1/6,250,000th of its volume. Its specific weight is about 12.24 milligrams lighter than hydrogen and 176.5 times lighter than air. Wait a minute. All right. I'm just going to keep reading because I don't want to. The will acts upon this body mechanically, causing it to expand, rise, or contract, or descend as the action takes place. It is this subject to the law of gravitation. There's an X force, or an unknown force, which holds the molecules of the body together. The atoms composing this body are extremely small, widely separated, and heavy. The internal density of the body is about the same as that of the external air. If the pressure of the air outside the body is increased, now the inside the body will increase in an exact proportion. The weight of this body was also calculated and found by them to be about 69.5 grams, approximately 2 ounces. These results, I may say, agree more or less with certain experiments conducted by Dr. Duncan McDougall of Haverhill, Massachusetts, some years ago, in which he weighed a number of patients dying from consumption. At the moment they died, he placed the cot containing the patient on a delicately balanced scale so that the patient, bed and all, was weighed. And at the moment of death, the beam of the balance went up and struck the upper arm suddenly. Oh, damn, that's cool. Yeah, because, I mean, see, that makes more sense to me. That's a lot more simple than let's weigh and measure every little thing. That just right there indicates that something did happen the moment of death, like something left. So the weight thus lost was calculated and was found in 4 out of 6 cases to be between 2 and I guess that's 20 ounces. That looks like a typo. But this seems to be a rather interesting confirmation of the Dutch experiments. It also seems to show us that the astral body is, in some sense, a material thing. Very tenuous, probably, but still material in one sense. Yeah, I mean, how it has to be, right? Because, I mean, how would you be able to, like, even touch physical things in the physical world if it wasn't? Because we know that can happen. It doesn't have to be, like, I think where they're messing up is they're actually trying to measure it along with, damn, I just dropped out for a second, sorry. They're actually trying to measure it along with earthly stuff. There's probably some matter or energy or something that we have no idea what it even is yet. And we don't know how to measure it. I can't get mad at them. That's the only way they can measure things. It's the way they can measure things. So sometimes scientists bother me. That's all. Sometimes. He says the clothing of the phantom. Phantoms of the dead and phantoms of the living have been seen on many occasions. I always wondered about this too, about clothes and stuff. So they've been seen on many occasions by mortal beings. One of the negative arguments often employed by skeptics is that the phantom is clothed, that seers usually describe the attire of the entity, therefore they say it was but a hallucination, for while the physical body might have its astral counterpart, the physical clothing could not. Consequently, many skeptics claim the phantom, if it did appear, has to be nude. No, it doesn't. I don't know why, but I've not seen a nude. I've even seen ghosts and apparitions. I've never seen, I don't know about you guys, but I've never seen like a naked person out of the corner of my eye or a naked apparition. Hell, I don't even see naked people in my dreams that much. Everybody's clothed in the spiritual realm, it seems. So it's perfectly natural that the skeptic should advance this argument and press the believer for an explanation. And the believer might say to the skeptic, well, where did the baby get his clothing when he became a resident of the physical world? Were not his clothes provided for him? The skeptic replies in the affirmative, and the believer maintains that the phantom's clothing can be provided for him also. Now, I've been asked on several occasions to state what light I can give upon this subject of the phantom's clothing. I must admit at the outset that this is a very little concern, but I can only make known what I've observed. It's still a pretty interesting thing to look into, though. So as to the creation of the clothing, I know no more about that than I do about the creation of my physical body or my astral body. But one thing is clear to me. The clothing of the phantom is created. And keep in mind, when he's saying phantom, he's talking about like the etheric double, so to speak. The clothing of the phantom is created and is not a counterpart of the physical clothing. The absorbing question to my mind is, how are they created? For whenever I was clothed in my projections, I invariably asked what the clothing was made of, how it came to be, what it looked like. I believe that I have already stated that I usually sleep in scant attire in order to offset depressing dreams and consequent depression of the astral body should I project. But on the other hand, should the occasion call for it, I would sleep in pajamas. So it's very curious to observe the way in which astral duplication is established, and 9 times out of 10, I awaken in the astral body with everything so perfectly duplicated that I don't even realize that I'm out of my physical shell. That happens to me too. Until I begin to move or try to make contact with objects or things like that. See, listen what he's saying right here. 9 times out of 10, when I awaken in the astral with everything so perfectly duplicated that I don't even realize that I'm out of my body. He said physical shell. Until I begin to move or try to make contact with something or touch anything physical around me, then I know. That's how real it is when you're having an OBE. I know what you're thinking. Dreams seem real. Yeah, the story seems real. I don't even know how to explain it. There's some kind of senses to the etheric double or something because it just feels, it's not a dream. It's totally different. It's kind of like when those people say, they take acid and they think they're tripping, and then they actually take some real acid, or they take shrooms and they think they're having a mushroom trip, and then they actually have a real mushroom trip. You know the difference. There's that kind of a difference. So anyways, it would be safe to say that if the testimony of every person who had died could be given to us, the majority of them would probably state that on awakening in the astral body that they thought they were in their physical body. Now, This shows us how completely the physical world is duplicated in the astral. All this must, of course, be governed by some superior intelligence within the individual. Peculiarities of our entire lives are established for us in the astral. That is one of the mystifying things about the astral world. If one has remained aloof from the crowd, he will find himself in a similar condition when awakening or when first leaving or living in the astral. It's an exact duplicate. And from the records of haunted houses and localities, it appears that hermits very often become earthbound too. Sylvan Vuldoon. And most of my life has been spent away from association with the crowd. And I find that I'm in the same condition when awakening in the astral, seldom meeting with anybody. And this may seem strange to the reader, but nevertheless, it's true. This is but one example of how a lifelong habit may be continued in the astral. And besides this, there is the duplication which is established at the time of projection, temporary or permanent, when one awakens and finds everything duplicated. Under this category, duplication comes the clothing of the phantom. I've noticed that as a rule, if my physical body were clad in a certain garb, my astral counterpart would be clothed in the identical garb. I say as a rule, but again, there have been many exceptions to that rule, which demonstrates the eccentricities of the controlling intelligence. Notice how he's calling it a controlling intelligence now. He just kind of throws that in there. Sometimes the physical body will be clothed, and the astral body will be clothed in a different manner, a sort of flimsy, gauzy white. And this is not at all unusual, and is perhaps the reason why ghosts have invariably become identified with white garments. Sometimes this astral garment is mistaken by observers for an aura, and sometimes the aura is mistaken for the garment of white. There is a distinction. One can be nude in the astral body, and the aura would then act as a clothing. In fact, it's my belief that the clothing is formed from the aura, and at times the aura is more dense than at other times, and it also seems to collect in some spots more densely than in other spots, causing the phantom to take on a blotchy appearance, really hideous. Of course, this is only as he appears to the observer, not as he really is. Fascinating. Well, that makes sense. There's been a couple of times in my life when I saw, things coming out of the corner of my eye. Like, I already told you guys that story when I saw a white apparition move. I thought it was my dad, but it wasn't. Another one when I was in a hotel room with somebody and this thing just walked through the door. Both of those entities were wearing white. I didn't get a really good look at them, but I saw white. They definitely weren't naked, That's the weird thing. Why people say that, naked. Robert Monroe's the only person that I've ever read that he actually experienced someone that was, I guess, naked or whatever. All right. Yeah. We got to pay the bills on the station so that we can play whatever music we want. Hey, we're getting some dedications into the station too, so that's cool. I'll never stop. That's not going to stop. I love music too much, man. Got to get the best of both worlds. Right brain, left brain. Logic, talk, science, blah, blah, blah. And music. Got to feel stuff too, right? 4 minutes. We'll be right back.
Kids presents What to Expect When You're Expecting. A teenager. Learning the lingo.
Today I'm going to help parents translate teen slang. Now, when a teen says something is on fleek, it's exactly like saying, that's rad. It simply means that something is awesome or cool. Another one is totes. It's exactly like saying, totally, just shorter. As in, I totes love going to the mall with Becca. Another word you might hear is jelly. Jelly is a shorter, better way to say jealous. As in, Chloe, I am like so jelly of your unicorn phone case.
You don't have to speak teen to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will think you're, rad, just the same. To learn more, visit adoptuskids.org. A public service announcement brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
This is the story of a very special woman. In a matter of seconds, she turned herself into a great mathematician or an entrepreneur. Her knowledge was limitless and still is. She could also make monsters disappear, especially those that lurked in the shadows under the bed. Once, this woman put back together a teenage girl's broken heart, which had been shattered in 1,000 pieces, just by giving her a bear hug. She masqueraded as a regular person at work, but as a superhero at home. Everyone knows her as Gabriella. I still call her Mom.
Your hero needs you now, and AARP is here to help. Find the care guides you need to help, complete with tips and resources at aarp.org/caregiving. A public service announcement brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7 with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
Hey, Bo, get in here and look at the TV. This reporter guy, he's saying that the alien spaceships are coming down and are having fights with the military. I know, Uncle Bill. Isn't it crazy? The New York Times even told me alien spaceship parts is in Las Vegas.
Have you heard conversations like this? Are you looking for more definitive explanations and answers? Visit our website at ufoseekers.com.
Have you ever wondered, what do the stars say for me? Or, will the next month or the next year be more favorable? How about, are our two signs compatible? Each month, at the new moon, you can ask these questions live with me, your astrologer psychic, Mary DeCina, along with host of Lighting the Void, Joe Root. Join us at the new moon for Cosmic Conditions. We look forward to working with your energy.
Every new moon at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. Eastern, right here on Fringe FM.
Broadcasting from Forest Tower Studios, all the way from the Deep South. Now, here is your host, Joe Root.
Yeah, I was longer than 4 minutes. A little brute force there. I feel like I'm playing a video game from the 1980s and that song comes on. All right, welcome back to Lighting the Void. Thanks for listening live on the Fringe FM. We're also live on YouTube. Tonight we're diving deeper into Sylvan Vuldoon's work, and I mean, he's talking about some just general questions about stuff that I've heard before about the astral. But like I said, I'd like to get his experience always. Two things. One, the phone lines are open if you want to call in. If you got anything you want to chime in about, it doesn't even have to be subject related to what we're talking about. If you just want to chime in, something, ask a question, whatever, that number is 501-777-5631. You can text it too. Did you know that? Even though I really don't want you to text. I'm trying to hang on to an old American pastime. I feel like radio is like, or just the radio style of things is about as old as baseball. But see, baseball hasn't gone anywhere, right? At least I don't think. And yeah, I just opened the phone lines up. So if you called in before, I probably missed it. Right? That happens. So call back if you want to call back. And yeah, other than that, we're good. Back to Vuldoon. So we're back to seeing these astral entities as white entities. He's got his theories about the aura and things like. I don't know about all the aura stuff. I really don't. I don't know if that matters or not. But there is a white. I've seen that before. I've never seen like Vuldoon is talking about. I've never seen anybody in the astral realm. Not one person. I've gotten out of, other than like, say, when I've gotten out of body, I could see the neighbors or whatever, but that's about it. Most of the time, most of my OB experiences have been, is when he talks about that place of quietude, that's what it's been. It's been like exactly like that place of quietude. Here, I'm going to call you back because it's not ringing for some reason. It does that sometimes. I freaking hate it. I don't know why it does that.
Hey.
All right. Is this Jesse?
Yeah.
What's going on? You got some more feedback for us? What's going on?
I do. And before the show started, I had planned on talking to you about the why when it comes to anything in the spiritual path, but especially with OBE. Because I was just talking to my son about this today, and he was getting, kind of nervous. And he had a couple of experiences that frightened him a little bit.
Really?
And I said, okay, well now you're able to look at what you don't like about it or what scares you or what worries you. But if you can find your why for why you want to explore this, why do you care? Why do you, keep coming back to, I want to practice this, I want to find out.
If he's scared of it? Is he asking you why, or are you asking him why?
I was asking him to think about that because he had an experience. I had just put it in the chat. He got out of body and didn't know that was what was happening to him. He said he had to pee. So he got up out of bed and walked downstairs and got to the bathroom door and had no idea. He said everything looked the same. It was totally normal. He said he could hear, our goose honking outside and all the normal stuff. And he went to reach for the door handle and he couldn't open it. And he said he assumed that he turned his little flashlight on. He said he assumed it was maybe dark and he couldn't see what he was reaching for, that his hand was asleep. So that's the first time I've seen him, real freaked out that it could happen without having any idea. And he had a reason to get a little bit more excited and happy about it because he said later that night in the early morning hours, he had woken up and gone back to sleep. And for whatever reason, this kid's a wizard when it comes to lucid dreaming. Because he can do it like it's nothing.
Right.
And we've only talked to him about, the base level techniques once he had come to me and expressed what was happening. So I hadn't talked to him about it before that point. And he said, yeah, Mama, more people should do that because it's really easy to just turn it on and go, oh, I'm dreaming. I'm going to make this happen now. I'm like, I don't think it's that way for most people. But
No. It's not, actually. For most people, it's not that easy. So, I mean, he's pretty blessed that he can do it that easy, you know. Did you ever find the Gateway Voyage tapes?
I did. The first time I did it was the last time we talked. I got myself ready and did a couple of like deep breathing exercises just to kind of get rid of that expectation of result, but also to get rid of my biggest thing is usually the fear of having a result and knowing that that's likely. And I honestly, Joe, I thought I was going to fall asleep. I was like, there's no way I'm going to stay awake for this. But the sensations that started pretty immediately were so intense that I couldn't believe I thought I wouldn't be awake for that. And do you remember me telling you about like the weird vibrations in my legs?
Yeah.
And I didn't describe it that well. But the best way I can describe it is it's like an internal earthquake that's just happening inside your body, or like somebody is shaking underneath a bed. But I'm not physically moving. And I got to the vibratory state. I didn't realize that those were two different and distinct things, but they have to be, because every subsequent time that I've done the Robert Monroe Gateway tapes, the very first thing that happens to me is that internal earthquake feeling. And then it progresses through the stages to the vibratory state, which feels totally different to me. It feels like your body's an electric toothbrush.
Yeah.
So I have no idea what that other thing is.
Well, I mean, that might be, that would just, so let's just go with what's in this book and we can go from there. But in this book, when your etheric double is it kind of discoincides with your physical body, sometimes it just depends on the person. Like for me, it just barely comes out and I have to peel myself out. For other people, it floats up. Some people, it just sits there and vibrates and goes crazy. I honestly think it depends on the person. I do. Like, it's individual for each person. The vibratory state's a little bit different. Now, I don't want to try to put this to a formula, but I think that that's what happens. So when you're going into paralysis, if you're still aware, and obviously you are, because that's what you were talking about, right? You're still awake and aware because you're feeling this stuff. Mm-hmm. That's probably the paralysis state that you're resisting. If you were just to fall asleep normally, I don't think you would feel it, or you would even be aware of it. You know, I could be wrong. You tell me.
Today I tried, because during my son's homeschool day, we take, 10 to 30 minutes to do a meditation. He'll be on one side of the big sofa and I'll be on the other, and we put our headphones on. And I said, I'm going to do the Gateway tapes right now. Like, why not? In the middle of the day, not, because I had been doing it at night before you lay down to go to sleep. And I appreciated the clarity that's there, because you're not exhausted at the end of the day. And I know that has its place and its purpose as well. But that was the first time that I noted the paralysis state, and was realizing that happens to me almost every night, as long as I don't pass out immediately right after my head hits the pillow. And I knew that if I tried really hard, I could move, if I really tried.
Yeah.
But my entire body felt like cement. And it was after that I got the distinct sensation of floating. And I had put it in the Discord, and I said, I wish I had opened my eyes when I lost full sensation of my physical body, and I could feel myself lift up. Like, why would I not open my eyeballs in that moment? But I didn't.
No, it happens. It happens. Sometimes people come out blind too. I've done that before. I've come out blind. Just not being able to see anything. But You have to understand, for me, all of this stuff is, I've never been terrified. It's been so exciting for me when this happens, you know, even just the vibratory state. I get stoked. I get excited. Like, oh, you know, I'm about to come out. Like it's about to happen. And I remember the first time, because I know Jenny was talking about that she had got to the vibratory state. And it doesn't, like, I felt those vibrations for like a week or so before I actually even came out of body. So that the fact that you're having common vibrations all the time like that, just you're close to just having out of body experiences whenever you want, just like your son, in my opinion. Does it happen every night?
Yeah, I've been doing it every night. And then I was telling my husband, I said, watch me doing this. And I get to a certain point and the process becomes interrupted at this stage in the tapes by Robert Monroe telling you to like come back to
wake up,
waking consciousness.
That's
and
exactly what
said,
happens to me too.
Yeah, and I said, so either I'm going to progress to the next one and it's going to happen, or I'm just going to be, you know, gallivanting on a regular night where I'm not doing it, and I'm going to find myself like digging through the refrigerator in my astral body or something.
Yeah. Well, so there's something about I think what Robert Monroe's ideas were for those first introductory Gateway Voyage tapes is just to get you to feel the hemisynchronization, right? So the ability to relax, I think he could do a better job on that when it comes to relaxing people, but whatever. But just so that you could, I think he just wants people to feel that focus that the two hemispheres give you, right? Like you said earlier, you thought, well, I'm just going to fall asleep. But did you feel like it was harder to fall asleep, or it was easier to stay awake while you were listening to these?
It was way easier. I mean, that was so far past my bedtime and my norm. And once he started getting into, hey, check out this sensation and feel that for a moment, it gave me like a jolt of energy, but my physical body was fully relaxed.
Yeah.
And I think my husband calls me, this is probably so inappropriate, he says, you're the world's mildest narcoleptic, because I can fall asleep anywhere, anytime, doesn't matter. If I want to go to sleep, that's what happens. And I swear, Joe, that helps in this process. Like you always say, the ability to relax like a cat, I can do that because I don't slow down ever throughout the day. So when I finally do, I just let go of everything. My body's just so grateful to stop, I think.
Yeah, it's kind of like when you get, like, I don't know if you've ever gotten a massage or like if you've been to a spa, but you don't really know that you're not relaxed until you've laid there long enough and a person's massaged you long enough, and then you suddenly realize, I haven't been relaxed at all. I'm just now starting to relax, for real.
Yeah.
And you have to get to that level of relax, probably a little bit more, but still focused and still awake. And some people can do it, you know. If you, in my opinion, if you get to the vibratory state, you've done it. You've mastered the ability to relax, and you've probably close to mastered the ability to relax and focus. And if you fall asleep every now and then, that's okay. I'd rather people fall asleep every now and then than fight it the whole time, you know?
Right.
Or just be so up in their head, they're tense, or they can't relax, or they can't stop thinking about the crap that they're afraid of, or, you know what I mean? Right.
Yeah, and I didn't have any fear going into it, and I promised myself that I would try my hardest. And I know Buellman is huge on that and dispelling fears, and just because I don't see the point of that. And the way that I was brought up, it was often, I think I told you, like, there's preparation for this, and you have to have a healthy spiritual body and a healthy physical body on every level before you try and jump into OBE at all whatsoever. And I was taught, like, you need to know how to make yourself invisible when you're out there, you know, in the fourth dimension.
Who told you all this
kinds
stuff?
of stuff. What's that?
Who taught you all that stuff?
My grandparents and my elders and the traditions that I was brought up in. It was doing the out-of-body experience, and regardless of what they called it, was a huge part of, and is a huge part of these magical spiritual systems, because we're taught that the astral is where all the energy flows from into the physical.
Right.
And you need to be able to get into those places. And that, you know, if you're a medium, especially, you're not supposed to just settle for being able to interact with the dead when they're here and they're able to come and, you know, clearly speak to you. You're supposed to be able to go over there into the astral and talk to them like I'm talking to you now. That's what I was taught. So, and I think oftentimes I've noticed where our gifts actually lie are the things we're most afraid to practice or to walk into and challenge ourselves with. So this is something that I kind of avoided for a really long time throughout, you know, having experiences throughout my life that I couldn't help, like my son. And it was because of him that I finally said, okay, I've heard enough talking about it. I've listened to enough. I've read enough. I've done enough avoidance. We're just going to have to do this together, because otherwise I can't help him.
Just like a good mother would. That's the coolest thing. You know what? If I thought, man, if I could have the coolest mom in the world right now, it would be a mother that's like, hey, let's get out of body together and let's go. I don't know if you've ever studied mystic Christianity, but there's this guy called his name is Daskalos, or Dr. Stylianos Ateshlis, but better known as Daskalos, and he teaches a sort of Christian mystic teaching. Claims to know the real truth about Christ. He's from this Isle of Cyprus and stuff. Talked about him on the show a long time ago. Had Daniel Joseph on, one of his students, on the show. And he calls astral travel exematosis, and he would take his grandson out because he believed children could get out easier. And he would take his grandson out into the astral, and they would go visit places and stuff like that.
That's wild.
Yeah.
I want to do that. Because with all the experiences he's had, even just recently, and the way that we're connected, he swears up and down that he can, when he's lucid dreaming, that he can get to me. And he'll say, sometimes I respond to him in the dream, and sometimes it's like I'm out of it and I'm not really there. Like, kind of like an NPC, like Sudi was saying.
Or you're sleep dreaming, or you're astral. What is Vuldoon calls it astral somnambulism. So just like a person that can sleepwalk in their physical body. Have you ever seen that, by the way? Has anyone ever sleptwalk around you before?
Yes, I have.
Well, you can do that in your astral body too. Matter of fact, a lot of people do it. They're not even aware. They're just moving around in their astral, but they're still asleep. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It makes a lot of sense.
So if someone comes and talks to you and you're kind of sleep astral walking, you might respond to them and say all kinds of things, but you'll never remember it.
Right. Exactly.
You want to hear something cool?
I want to know yeah.
So I did the same thing when I got out of body one time. It wasn't a lucid dream, but I got out of body and I went to the only people out here is my dad and my son. I don't know anybody else. So I went to my dad's room and my dad was asleep, and I stood right by his bed and I said, "Hey, Dad, guess what?" And he answered me, "What?" And I said, "I'm out of body. I'm asleep. where, in my place, my body's asleep, but I'm out of body. I'm standing right here in my astral body. And he goes, yeah, really? What are you doing? And I said, well, I'm just standing here. And he goes, wow, like sarcastic, like big deal, And what was that baffled me, because I asked him the next day, I said, hey, he knew I was doing all that. I said, did you remember talking to me? He goes, I didn't talk to you. You're full of it or whatever. But what happened is he was in his astral body, so to speak. His etheric was probably in that room. I couldn't see because it was dark, but it was probably in that room somewhere, just floating around. He probably answered me like a sleepwalker would. You understand what I'm saying? And he doesn't remember it. It's trippy to think about.
And that would be infuriating, to have an entire conversation.
Oh, yeah.
And the person not remember it.
Yeah, and Robert Monroe talked about it, too, when he pinched the girl. He would talk to their astral beings, and he'd be like, are you sure you're going to remember this? And they'd be like, oh, yeah, I'll remember it, whatever. Nothing. Like, just because they weren't conscious in their astral body. It's a trip.
And that's what we work, that's what we work towards, right?
Mm-hmm.
Being conscious in that state, being able to control it and be in the driver's seat still.
Yeah. And, so I'm wondering, the only reason why I asked you to use the, Monroe introductory tapes is that because you were explaining to me about the shaking and the vibrations and all the stuff. When you listen to those tapes, they're about 20, 30 minutes long. Did the exact shaking and vibration happen? And if it did it happen faster or about the same?
It happened. It was almost immediate. I would say as soon as he started the hemisync techniques and got into that. And I can't tell if it's because I'm so ready to jump into that state of mind, do you know what I mean? Or if it's the actual tapes affecting me.
Yeah.
It happened faster than any other time I've experienced it when it just happens on its own.
I think, in my opinion, the tapes help. People can say what they want to about Monroe. I don't worship the guy, but I think they did discover something with the hemisync, the synchronization of the two hemispheres of the brain with the tones. Anything in any time in nature, when we bring two opposites together, creation happens. So it only makes sense if two hemispheres of our brain come together that a conscious thing would happen, almost like a creation.
It makes so much sense. I mean, we do the same things in different traditions, just using drums. That's essentially what it's trying to get you into that state of mind, and to talk about joining the creative aspect of your brain and, the right side and the left side and the hyper logical, and bring those into essentially a divine union, so that they can function as a whole, because it's in that place that we're able to connect with, more divine, higher realms and get into the astral. And you can even choose different pathways through the astral, and this is just what I was taught. I'm not saying it's fact. But there's the astral realm.
I've been talking about what you just said on the show for years.
Really?
Yeah.
I was taught that there's the general astral plane, like everybody's in a mall together, and we're all just hanging out in the mall. But there are these side doors that if you don't want to hang out in the mall with Gen Pop and you want to take a different pathway, you can choose to take that pathway if you know how to get in and you know what you're doing, and you want to avoid like the astral leeches or being seen or somebody who practices magic and knows what they're doing, and you don't want to have confrontation, or you're just worried or whatever. And that's part of what initiations into certain traditions do. It connects you with the current of that astral pathway. And if you have an ancestral practice, like ancestral veneration, usually your ancestors are going to have their own pathway, so that when you get out of body and you get fully into that dimension, not just, be bopping around the house, you're able to choose to take just that path. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So like a back door that's, a tunnel is the best way I can describe it.
You don't want to tell us what this tradition is, do you?
I can't tell you some of them. One of them, the most basic thing that I was brought up in, is Espiritismo. And it's just Caribbean spiritism, and it's mixed heavily with African and indigenous practices. So there's a lot of that, those old practices that came over through the diaspora that a lot of people have kicked out of, Kardecian spiritism and even other forms of spiritualism from the Caribbean. So a lot of that original
Caribbean
base
magic
is still there. Yeah, and before, there's a guy named Allan Kardec, and he, like Vuldoon, he approached it with a scientific mind. And he was like, I'm not a medium, but I want to know how all of this works. And he documented all of it and put it into books. And that became, the foundational doctrine for what people in the Caribbean had already been doing. Because it's believed that, if
why
you're
couldn't I have
born
been
a
born in the
medium-
Caribbean and met these people? Why did I have to be born in... Sorry, I'm vomiting in my mind right now. I like it. Caribbean magic sounds so cool to me, actually.
It is cool.
You got the beach and you got magic. There's, what's better than that?
That's probably part of why it's so powerful, because you're right there at the ocean. That's where it's originating, in that ground, in that sand. But most people nowadays aren't taught. I think it's kind of, a lot of it is kept secret on purpose. Like, this is my information and it makes me feel powerful type of thing.
Man.
So nowadays, a lot of people aren't taught about how deeply important the astral is within just this tradition and all of the branches and veins that it has. Because the whole point, like I said, you're supposed to be able, it's not just talking to the dead and, I hear this or I feel this, or, getting mounted. You're supposed to be able to go over there and speak with them and bring back knowledge that is so old, you'll never find it in any book. So people don't understand that, and they even... I didn't ever have social media. I don't have it now. So imagine my surprise when somebody's showing me in 2020 what Instagram looks like. And there are some of the traditions that I've been raised in, and people posting pictures of their altars and their practices. And I was like, what alternate universe did I wake up in today? But most of these people, if you talk to them, they have no idea, like, what the glass of water is for. Or that, you have a crucifix on the table, but we don't actually worship the cross. It's just a compass. Because if you can align it just right with the right timing, it's an axis mundi. So you can say, I'm going into the astral. It's like telling Uber, I'm going here, take me to this place. Or open the road so that this specific spirit from this specific pathway and in the astral can make it here. And nobody knows this stuff anymore, and it's not taught. So it's really difficult.
Well, I think it's taught in some Western traditional magic. I mean, it's taught in the Golden Dawn. Like the thing that I find across the board when it comes to magic is they're all kind of teaching the same things. Whether one's teaching the elements or whatever, but eventually they all get to the astral, quote, astral work. And then there's some form of alchemy. And just like you said before, bringing the two in one mystery and all of that stuff, that's in every mystery teaching. So I'm not trying to push the mystery teachings down people's throats, but it's all there for a reason. I mean, thousands of people have been doing this stuff since the beginning of time. Like, it's been documented in all the spiritual texts, whether it's Egyptians. I did a show on this the other day, Tibetan, Christian, they all talk about the same stuff, the mystery of the 2-in-1, whether I was in the body or out of the body, I don't know, that kind of thing. They all talk about the astral body. They're not all fantasizing about this stuff. Can't be, not in my opinion,
And these people come from a time when survival was the most prominent thing in your day. You're trying to eat, sleep, procreate, and survive. That's basically it for, 1,000 years, and even within the last few hundred. So why are they all going to waste their time dreaming up fantasies about going to these places and having all these ceremonies if it wasn't real?
I don't know. I don't think they are wasting their time.
I know for sure my own grandparents, who on both sides were farming people, they didn't have time for any of that. So why were they doing it if it wasn't extremely important?
I don't know.
To understand this stuff.
I think it's a good point, and I'm glad. So what are you going to try to do now? What are you going to try to get into now? What's your next move?
I want to dig deep into Buellman with my son, because so far we've only watched it was like one of his 12-minute videos. It wasn't even one of his lectures that's on YouTube that I would love to listen to. But he was talking about, the fear aspect, and he was so real about it, this stuff is out there. So, that there are criminals. Even in a small town, there's people that are willing to do bad things. Mm-hmm. But when you walk outside, you're not thinking about the possibility of those people. You might keep a weapon on you, but you're not expecting to have a confrontation with them every single time you leave the house. Right. And just stuff like that. And he looked at me, he's like, Mama, this is stuff you've always talked about. It's what you've always said, and you need to be aware, and there are things that we can do, but you don't have to be terrified and go into it, because if you're laying down to do this stuff and that's all you're thinking about is what if I open my eyes and, George the demon is standing over me, then that might be what you get, and maybe that's what you learn from and learn how to do differently. But I'm going to continue going in the Monroe tapes. I'm going to see how far I can get. And I don't want to rush it or anything like that. But I can feel that itch to go deeper. And I'd like to try to find a way to introduce this to my son, even if it's just a really well put together hemisync. Because there's so many studies that talk about how that has an effect on, generalized anxiety and stuff like that, which he deals with every single time he has a growth spurt out of nowhere. He gets, terrible bouts of anxiety.
Do you have anxiety? Does anxiety run in your family?
It does. Yeah, it does. And I tell him, there's not something wrong with you. You're perfect. a lot of this is just in your blood. And I think some of it is, you know, unfortunately, even with your mama and daddy, if we had aspects of ourselves that were unhealed when you were conceived and when I grew you in my belly, those things are passed on, just like alcoholism or blue eyes.
Yeah, I've read an article where they say anxiety, you know, panic disorder and anxiety, things like that, isn't genetic. Like I've read a bunch of papers on that. I think it is, because everybody on my mother's side, from my mother to my grandmother on down, has had a period in their life where they just kept having series of panic attacks and anxiety. I mean, there's no solid proof it's genetic, I guess, but it just seems that it has to be, you know.
Have we not acquired enough proof in our lifetimes alone? I mean, the ancestral passage of just about anything is possible, and they'll admit that something like alcoholism, even if you didn't grow up being raised in the same household as the parent who suffered from that disease, your predisposition is still skyrocketed beyond the general populace. So how could that not have an effect, you know, on your children? And a lot of the new agey people talk about ancestral trauma. But I think people forget the part, or don't want to look at it, where even if it's not your fault, it's your responsibility to heal that for yourself. And that sucks, but it can also be super empowering if you're the breaker of chains for your lineage, you know?
Yeah, if you can get through it. One of the most powerful and revealing and happiest things I ever did in my life, like what you just said, I've lost weight and gained weight 1,000,000 times. That feels good to do that, sure, to get healthy, but beating panic disorder and anxiety without medicine, it took me 2 years to beat that. And I lived, you know how some people won't even live in any discomfort. I lived in torture for 2 years, mental and psychological and emotional torture for 2 years. But step by step, I beat it, and I'm hoping that it doesn't, that stops the lineage thing, you know, stops it from happening.
I bet it will.
Because if you go up the tree, there's alcohol, there's drugs, there's stuff, people doing other things to knock it down, you know, that kind of thing.
Joe, I very firmly believe, because of what I've seen in my life and through these practices, that not only when you heal that like you did, not only are you healing yourself and any future generations, I think it travels backwards in time. And when you start studying the concept of time and physics within the astral and how that works, and what people call the Akasha, and, you know, storing every record, there's now a record of this conversation in the astral. Why wouldn't it be possible for whatever you're healing to travel back in time and heal people that are long gone?
Maybe.
So what if the process of you healing yourself is also elevating them that walked before you?
So I'm with you on that. That's a cool concept too. So are you going to have an out-of-body experience now? Like a full-fledged one?
Absolutely. I'm going for it.
Yeah.
If it happens, I'm here.
I'm going to tell you, Jenny, and a couple other people that I know are at that vibratory state. This is the time that you don't give up. Even if, let's say you just get to that vibratory state for a month and you're like, damn, you know, I'm still not peeling myself out of body. I'm still not doing it. You're so close. Like, don't stop. Whatever you do, don't stop. Do it. I hate to see, because I've seen people, they get to the vibratory state and after a week, they're like, okay, I can't. I'm getting to that vibratory state you're talking about, but I'm not coming out. And then they give up, and I'm like, damn, you're so close, you know. So
I don't know how, Joe. It's addicting. is addicting.
Well, you have to, it's almost like you have to, the time when it happens, you've had it, but you've had an OBE, right? Like have you?
I have, and it was unintentional more than one time. I don't ever want to, I want to know exactly what's happening and how I got there and be able to instigate it. And it was both times it happened, I was to the point of extreme exhaustion.
Yeah. Well, imagine yourself doing what you're doing now, and then just sitting up in bed. One day you just sit up in bed and it doesn't feel like you sat up. Wait till it vibrates. This is what I do. Relax, chill out, just enjoy the vibrations. Don't get too happy about them. Just enjoy them. And they'll kind of peak. I don't know about you, but mine will peak. It'll start vibrating and humming, and it'll peak, and then it'll start to come down a little bit, right? Once it starts to come down a little bit, let it peak, and then as it starts to come down a little bit, that's the time. That's when you just sit up. Yep, just sit up. Don't jerk yourself up. Don't do it too slow, but almost as if you were just peeling yourself up off the couch to go get a drink of water. That kind of thing.
Cool. When I did it today, it was the first time I understood what my son was talking about when he said he would feel the rocking in the computer chair type sensation. And that was like right before he, woke up fully and came out of it. And I also felt that right before old Bob Monroe was like, "Hey, wake up."
Yeah, I can't. Those introductory tapes, I'll get right to the vibratory state sometimes. And then he's like, "Okay, time to wake up now." And I'm like, "Damn it," But the reason why he's doing that is because when you keep going in the program, you get to like Focus 12 or whatever. And those are the same tapes, but they're like 45 minutes long, an hour long, an hour and a half. So really, he's just trying to introduce your mind to the hemisync and then to the vibration, and that's it,
And one of the crazier things I noticed, you know how when you do a regular meditation, if you've got a good one going on and you're able to get in deep, you come out feeling more rested and clear-headed and like you got yourself together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I was amazed the first night, last time we talked after I did this, I got up out of the bed and was walking around and kind of stomping my feet. And, sorry, I heard an owl outside. I was walking around and stomping my feet and trying to just kind of come back into it. And I could see, I don't know the best way to describe it, but it was basically just blob, indiscriminate energy. Like it looked like, how when we were growing up, we had the televisions with the little knob and the TV antenna. Yeah. And you'd have to kind of play with it, and you could get the channel in, but this weird fuzz would cover the picture where you could tell what was going on and what the characters were saying, and then like the little shadows would kind of cross across the screen. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, and you'd either have to move the antenna on the TV or go outside and move the antenna on the house, right?
Yeah. And that's what my vision was like. And normally, when it comes to how I perceive energies, it's like turning down a knob on the radio, the volume up or down. And I couldn't do anything about it. I was just completely wide open. No idea. Like, I could see it. It looked like heat signature on the road in the summertime, but coming off of all of my plants. And it wouldn't go away. And I was like, well, I'm in it now. I might as well start the second tape. And at that point, I fell asleep. But every time I've done it, when I finish and I get up and I'm walking around and really coming to for the rest of the day, Joe, there's that sense of peak clarity where the colors are sharper. You feel more like the breeze on your skin. It's just kind of crazy. And I guess that's got to be
just from having the hemisync episode. Yeah. Yep. Is that what you're talking about? You
gotta
feel
be what
better?
It is. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy. So for that alone, I wish more people would just try it out, even just the basic beginning introductory phases. Because I know a lot of people who feel like they don't really get anything from meditation, and they've tried and tried. Because this does something different.
Well, I'm glad to hear the report. That's good news.
Yeah.
That's good news.
Thanks for having me again for a chat.
Yeah, so you got to now we got to get you the Focus 12 audios. I think if you're in the Discord, somebody, I think we can drop you links. There's other Discord channels that have all of the Monroe tapes, like 1 through whatever, if you want to do that.
I would love that.
Yeah. I think those are like the old ones or something. So, yeah, they still work though.
I want to see what happens if I put just Hit Me Sync on my son's ears, how it'll make him feel and what it'll do if he can relax and just lean into that.
You never know, right? It's worth a shot. Definitely worth a shot. Well, thanks for the feedback. Keep us posted. Don't forget, make sure you call us back and let us know.
Okay. All right, Joe. Thank you.
You're welcome. You have a good night. Thanks for your call.
You too.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. She sounds so sweet. It's hard not to just keep talking to her. She sounds so sweet. Not only that, it's funny that I don't know. I forgot to ask her how long she'd been listening to the show, but she's talking about some of the same things with her spiritual tradition we've been talking about for years. The same fundamental principles that underlie in everything, right? That doesn't matter what system you're in. It's crazy how it's all the same. Damn. This show went by quick. For me, it did. I don't know about y'all, but for me, it did. I think I only got to do maybe 2 paragraphs of the book. Also, someone in the chat, I think it was New England Dirt Roadie, said, have you seen the out of here, the book by Albert Taylor, the Soul Traveler book? That's the next book I was going to get into, that one. So there's actually 4 books that I want you guys to check out and that we'll talk about, but I don't want to daunt you with books, but that's one of them for sure. And Vera Stanley Alder's The Finding of the Third Eye. That's a good one too, in my opinion. But anyways, I guess we'll see you guys tomorrow night, same time, same bat channel. And make sure you support the Fringe FM or Lighting the Void. Dan, if you're listening, I got your message. I will check into that. I don't know what the hell's going on, but I will check into that for you, get that taken care of. And the rest of you guys, please do what, like if you listen to the show from the beginning, please, from the bottom of my heart, like for Gareth, right? Let's all use that as a motivation to get out and to send him love as well. Right? Good night, you guys. Sweet dreams. Nighty night. I'm gonna have to get a screen door now. Damn it. Chicago, good night. Washington, Atlanta, South Carolina, Augusta, night. Idaho, Saskatchewan, what is this? Saskatchewan, Edmonton, night. There's so many dots up there in this Northeast, I don't know. Washington, Maryland, Toronto, and if I missed you, Chicago, if I missed you, good night, y'all. Sweet dreams.